BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Martin Dowden, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday, the 7th of August. Top of the agenda, two massive Conference League qualifiers tonight.
Oh, it's an incredible goal! Oh, that's stunning. Michelin have won it. That is an unbelievable overhead kick to win this in the dying seconds of extra time.
Can Hibs get over their dramatic defeat last week as they travel to Belgrade to take on Partizan? And Dundee United are also looking to progress further.
Sapsford clips it in, back post, big chance, big goal for Dundee United. Can you hear that massive sigh of relief from Luxembourg?
After overcoming a dogged Strassen in the last round, how will Jim Goodwin's men get on against Rapid Vienna? Plus, there's been a flurry of activity in the transfer window.
We've obviously watched quite a lot of his footage, done the correct due diligence, and we think we've unearthed a really good young player.
Striker Joel Wesley joining Dundee, just one of many moves we'll be looking at.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Delighted to say I'm joined by the Daily Record senior sports writer Scott McDermott, fresh from Turkey, a 41-degree tan, I believe. Scott, you're looking fabulous.
I'll always be a pasty-faced Scot, Martin, don't worry about that.
And Cillian Sheridan, who's been warming up with a cocktail of vitamins, I believe. Welcome to you, Cillian. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Plenty to talk about, Scott and Cillian. Let's get into Hibs in Belgrade. I'll start with you, Scott. How much do you think that dramatic defeat to Michelin last week will have on them?
Well, look, it was obviously a massive blow to them. Not just the timing of it, probably the manner of the winning goal, the spectacular kind of scissor kick at Easter Road that put them out. But no, the reaction was always going to be really important for David Gray, but I think he got that at Dens Park, obviously with the first Premiership game of the season. Kieran Bowie getting off the mark with a double, a good victory, no matter what you think of Dundee. Still tough for Hibs going there. Any away game in this league's difficult, so they've been looking for a response. I think they get the right one. They now go back into Europe. Really tough tie. Probably not a lot of people expecting them to go through. So they'll be looking to go to Belgrade, put on a good performance, keep themselves in it, and I think they'll be confident of getting some kind of positive result and at least giving themselves a chance at home to try and progress.
Cillian, how positive do you feel about Hibs' chances here?
I think Hibs have probably, they're going off, I think, Partizan's previous reputation. I don't think they're the team that they used to be. I know they've had a lot of financial problems. They've had a transfer ban. I know they've a very young squad. And I was talking to my friend who played them in the previous round for AEK Larnaca, and he kind of was saying similar things. That he said in possession, very good team, very young, but they'll probably will give up chances. I actually fancy Hibs to go through more than to not.
Interesting. Scott, it's an interesting point, actually, Cillian raises. Do you think sometimes, particularly Scottish clubs, might look at these names and historically, we associate them with success in Europe, and that might play a part in itself rather than look at the actual quality of the side that they're facing?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, you could probably accuse Scottish clubs of that in the past. Maybe not having enough confidence in themselves and maybe being put off by the big names. I think especially just going to places like Belgrade, that part of Europe, they're obviously renowned for nurturing really technically gifted footballers. We almost seem to get kind of put off by that as well, as if we're going to be technically inferior. But look, Cillian's got a point. I mean, Hibs are a good side. They've got a good squad, really good players, good mixture of experience and kind of younger ones. Some new signings in there as well. So, but Cillian will probably know a bit more about Partizan than myself. When I had a look at them last night, that win over the Larnaca game, where they lost on penalties. I think there was like 3 or 4 sending offs in that game. So, don't know whether that'll be an issue for Hibs. Just obviously going away from home, you always want to try and keep your discipline. If it turns into that kind of game, but no, look, Hibs should go there confident, especially after the performance against Midtjylland, when again people thought it was a really tough tie for them. No, it proved to be that, but they certainly held their own. So there shouldn't be any inferiority complex going there. To have any chance of going through, they have to have a bit of confidence in themselves, and at least think they can keep it well alive for coming back to Edinburgh.
Cillian, how equipped do you think this Hibs squad is to maybe take on the challenge of the environment itself that they'll face there? Because I think by all accounts it's going to be quite feisty there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest obstacle or hurdle they'll have, is the away atmosphere. It'll be probably as hostile as a place as any of the players will have played in. That's probably the one thing they've really improved on over last season under David Gray. It's probably that kind of steeliness about the squad. They've come through a lot from the first half of the season. They kind of know they've dealt with adversity and tough times. So I think kind of all that should equip them well. I think it's important for them to, although said I do think I fancy them to go through. I think the important part is not to kind of give it all up in this away leg. Don't give Partizan the kind of a head start or any sort of help that they'll need for the second leg, and usually in these games it does come down to what team kind of focuses and just kind of keeps focus for the full whatever it is, two games, 180 minutes. It's kind of like minimising mistakes and stuff like that, which I know last season Hibs, David Gray mentioned it so many times, that take away the last, I think, 5 minutes of games, they would have been way further up the table, and then you kind of fear again, don't start making those same mistakes this year as we saw with Midtjylland. But I think the performance against Midtjylland should give them a lot of confidence in going further in Europe this year. I think Midtjylland they'd be a really good team. To kind of come so, I know at the end of the day they still lost the tie, but to come so close to such a good team should give them a lot of confidence going forward in this round, the next round, whoever that may be against.
David Gray, I think, has been challenging the players to make history. I think that was the term he used, and reach a group stage. Scott, do you like that terminology, focusing on the opportunity that's there rather than maybe some of the problems or the toughness of the tie itself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you need to be positive. It's a bit like we spoke about earlier. If you keep talking about how difficult it is in Europe and how difficult it is to get in the group stages, then you'll probably never get there. I think Hibs have proven they're a good team in Scotland last season. They did that, as Cillian says. They got over that horrible start and built a good squad, improved. They're one of the top teams in this country. But I do think Europe, it's obviously different. I just think for the belief and the confidence of everyone at the club, players and staff, winning in Europe and progressing, it can add so much. I think that's why the Midtjylland defeat would have been a real kick in the teeth given the performance. But if they could go and beat Partizan and get through this tie, I think it would do wonders for them. I mean, we know how difficult it is to get a run in Europe and do well in the Premiership. I suppose that's the challenge for all of these teams, to build a squad capable of competing on both fronts. But as you say, I just think if they can be really positive getting into it and actually get out of it with a really good result, a victory that maybe a lot of people would doubt going into it, I think it would just give them a massive confidence boost going forward.
Okay, let's move on to Dundee United. They face very tough opposition as well in the shape of Rapid Vienna. Got the job done last round, huffed and puffed a little bit against Una Strassen. Cillian, are they in with a shout here? It's very similar to the Hibernian situation, or perhaps is it too big a step up for you?
I think I'd have, from the two ties in my head, I have Hibs with a more of a chance to go through. I think Rapid Vienna I just think that they're a bigger team with a bigger budget. I know it happens a lot, but they just sold a player there for around 8 or 9 million, I think. And it's just different it's different figures you're up against. They've brought in one or two with that money that's just Dundee United don't have to match them. I think it's like I said with the Hibs tie, games like that against teams like Rapid Vienna who have experience in Europe a lot more than a lot of the Dundee United players and team is in recent years would be just see that focus over a two-legged tie where they can kind of Rapid Vienna might not need to be on it every single attack. They'll probably have more of the ball than Dundee United. And it'll come down to, I think, Dundee United just focused, solid shape, and just not giving up, not having a lapse in concentration. And it's really important to do that over the two legs. Always found doing it before myself, like it was a big thing in the first leg, not to give up the game. Just kind of stay in it, be patient, know that you're not going to win the tie, but it's definitely an easy thing to lose against teams like that. Teams like that who've experience in it will prey on that, and they'll if you give them a chance, they'll take it, and then they'll be able to shut up shop. You kind of stay in it until kind of you get chances to come along. But I think it comes down to probably what Jim Goodwin has said. It's a really good, solid shape, hard to break down. And I think he probably had an eye on this with some of the signings. I know a lot has been made of the lack of Scottish players in what he deems as starting 11, but I think that can maybe come into it a little bit for ties like this, maybe.
Scott, I guess one of the issues for Jim is just getting that squad to gel. There's been so much change there for such a big occasion. They have to get most things right. Do you see that as maybe being the biggest challenge for them?
Certainly one of them, Martin. And I think just in terms of the squad, he's short on numbers at the minute, Jim, at the start of the campaign. I think he still wants to get a few bodies in. He's not been helped by injuries. I think right in saying a couple of the new guys at Fata and Namo who have come in are both still out. I think I'm right in saying now he's got long-term injuries to Trapanovsky and Ryan Strain, who are big players for them as well. Even if you look at their bench at the weekend, it was mostly young kids that were on the bench. So that's a problem, especially getting into a tie like this when really you need strength and depth. You need everyone at it. As Cillian says, you really need to be solid throughout the two ties. I agree. I mean, I think that's what Dundee United will need. I think they've proved domestically they can be pretty solid, not giving much away. That's why they had a fairly successful season last year. But it's a big step up getting into Europe against a team like Rapid. So it's going to be tough for them. I mean, watched the highlights of Dundee United at the weekend. A couple of the new guys look good. I mean, feels like a totally different squad. I thought the boy Kamara in midfield was really good and it'll be really important for them going forward. I was quite impressed with Dolcek, the boy they've got on loan as well. It scored at Falkirk. So these guys are going to need to perform, but as Cillian says, I think the first leg away from home should be about staying as tight and compact as you can and giving yourselves a chance to come back to Tannadice and have a chance of going through. But really tough tie. As we're saying there, Rapid, big club, good players. They've had a decent start to the season. I looked last night domestically and in Europe. They've started pretty well, pretty solid. So, really tough task for Dundee United to get through in this.
Cillian, I mean, I think you touched on it earlier. It's going to take a solid performance in terms of what Jim Goodwin was saying in the build-up. In a weird sort of way, we always sort of say that having the home tie second is a benefit, but in this one, to me, it feels like it might have been better to have it the other way around and try and get something positive at Tannadice to go and protect. How do you see that?
Yeah, it can give you a chance where if you get a team like that, you get them at home, you're still in the tie, or you could maybe nick a 1-0 or a 2-0 or something like that, or a narrow win, or even keep it a draw. And then, the other team, their fans might not be happy. There might be a bit of discontent there over their results. They might see it as a bad result. And then you've got a chance where they're at home and they're under a bit of pressure. So you do lose a bit of that, where you give them the chance to really lay down their marker. When they're at home, they'll fancy themselves. They'll know probably that their home tie is a chance to kind of try and put the tie to bed early. But I think, I don't think Jim Goodwin or Dundee United are going into it thinking otherwise. I think they know how tough a tie it will be. And I think they'll probably, like I've been saying over and over, I think Jim has as well, that it is about them being solid, compact, and just putting in, I think, they need to put in like a real professional European performance. That's probably what a lot of the clubs like Dundee United, now Hibs, Aberdeen, Hearts over the last few years in the qualifiers probably have struggled with. And I think it's probably good, probably benefiting them that it's the same teams over the last few years that are in these positions, that they can kind of get to learn it or get the experience of these qualifiers, managing the away ties and stuff like that, and how they're different to a home tie. So I think it's probably, like we've been saying, it's about Dundee United staying in the tie and having a chance in bringing it back to Tannadice for them.
Okay, remember United's tie will be live on the BBC Scotland channel tonight, and coverage of Hibernian's tie will be on BBC Radio Scotland. Let's quickly look at the transfer window as we move towards the end of the podcast. Dundee signed striker Joe Wesley from Burnley. Stephen Presley describing him as a natural goal scorer. Scott, Dundee, they weren't brilliant against Hibs. Is this the sort of area they need to strengthen in for you? Or are there more?
Certainly need forwards in, Martin. Lost a lot of good players in the summer, which has made it tough for Stephen Presley. See, obviously, the boy Wesley's come in for Burnley. We know Dundee have got a kind of tie up with Burnley, and they're trying to use that and exploit that again. He's had a few loan moves, scored a few goals without setting the head on fire. But you're right. I mean, Stephen Presley will just be looking for something. I think he said, certainly said privately, might have said publicly as well, he still thinks that the squad's well short. And the season's already started, so the recruitment has to be ramped up in the next couple of weeks if they're going to build a squad capable of surviving in the Premiership. But he certainly needs bodies in. I think he needs them in the attacking areas, and it looks as if he's quite happy with getting Wesley in. But I don't think he'll be the last before the window closes.
Yeah, elsewhere, Angus Gunn joined Nottingham Forest. I'm sure everyone would agree that him getting some game time would be good for Scotland in terms of that goalkeeping position there. Cillian, Celtic linked with Liverpool's Stefan Bajcetic. It still feels like quite a quiet window for Celtic. Do you agree with the sense that many fans seem to have, that they've been underperforming in this window?
Yeah, they're probably strange. It kind of happens every year now. It gets to this stage, fans aren't happy, and then probably the only good thing for Celtic is that they can probably say, well, it's been working for us. Like, kind of something like, trust us, it's been working. They've kind of, I don't know if they've gauged how much they need to be spending or what they need to be bringing in to be successful in terms of league. I know a lot of the pressure will be probably from Brendan Rodgers himself in terms of getting those players to excel more in Europe. I know that's where he wants to come back, and that's where he wanted to come back to do well and to improve on. And I think he knows it. And probably last season was probably a good indication of when he is back, what he can produce. He backed himself up with the European performance and the improvement in that, where you can say, look, if you do actually give me what I want and what I need and what the club needs to go and challenge the bigger teams in European competition, then there is payoff to it. And I think there's probably an argument between himself and the board in terms of the board are thinking, well, we know what we need to give or how much we need to give to back you to go and win the league, the bread and butter, and then that get enough to get us into Europe, and then probably that's where they're happy, where they've made up the return on what they're putting in. Whereas Brendan Rodgers himself will want to, for his own kind of reputation and everything, is in Europe is where he really wants to set a mark with this team.
We'll leave it there. A big night ahead for Hibernian and Dundee United in Europe. You can follow that on the BBC, as I mentioned earlier. That's all we'll get time for. Many thanks to Scott and Cillian, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. And remember to keep track of those qualifiers tonight on the BBC Scotland channel on TV and on BBC Radio Scotland and online. Thanks very much for listening.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.